You're listening to The Dating Den with dating and relationship badass and best-selling author Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important dating, sex, and relationship issues you want to know about. So if you're ready for true talk that's authentic and unfiltered, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
The Dating Den, episode 49 with Patti Contenta. How to flirt, even if you're not good at or really bad at flirting. Ladies, welcome to my Dating Den. I am super excited about this podcast today because y'all have been asking me so many damn questions about flirting. And you think you're flirting. Am I flirting? I'm really outgoing. Does that mean I'm flirting? There's the friend zone versus flirting and being friendly, and y'all are confused. So I thought I would bring on my favorite flirting expert, the amazing, beautiful Patti Contenta. So before I dive into your bio, I just want to say thank you so much for coming to the Dating Den.
Oh my God, thank you for having me, Marni. I'm really excited to be sharing some information, all of this about flirting with your what do you call it? You always have this beautiful word with your tribe.
My tribe, my crew.
Your crew, your tribe. I'm excited to share it with them.
Yeah, and the reason why I just love what you do, and we're going to get into this more, is literally you have such great specific advice and techniques, and when you share them, I get tons of reports back I did that and it was so worked and it was so easy, and so I'm super excited. So for those of you who don't know Patti, she is a professional dancer, she's a choreographer, she's a judge. That just makes me really excited. I watch Dancing with the Stars way too often.
You do.
I do. I'm we have our own Carry On and Abba with Patti Contenta. She is an international traveling dance consultant for the world-renowned Arthur Murray dance franchise, and she is founder of Sensuality Secrets, the author of Desirable and Deserving, an ebook, and Sexy in Seconds, a DVD program that really focuses on helping women who are struggling with their body image, and I know that's you, all of you. It helps them really reconnect with their feminine energy and their sensuality through the art of body language and dance. And why she's here is because her mission is to have women just like you really release your resistance with expressing your sensuality. And I can't wait to talk more about this, by providing techniques that will lead you to more playful approach to flirting. It'll build your self-esteem and actually have you exude this natural confidence that quality men are just magnetized to. So with that, let's get started. I know that I want to sort of set the stage because when I talk to women and I work with them, there's this big confusion around the misnomer that if I'm overtly flirting, I will give off this vibe that says, I have to have sex with you, or it's too much, or I'm too easy. And they're so scared of that in my experience, then what happens is they're sort of out there saying they're wanting to date, metaphorically with their arms closed and their lips pursed, so before we even get into the flirting formula, what's going on there, and is there sort of a frame that people can use to just think about flirting differently?
Yes, I agree. The women that talk to me mention the same things. They really don't want to give off any kind of vibe that, invites some sort of sexual advances before they're even ready. So they hold back, or they want to be respected for what's on the inside, their hearts, their minds, and they kind of hold back there too. So they don't just want to be seen as this physically, all about her body. And then they're, so they're going through these internal struggles. And in the end, that's what they do. They shut off and they get stuck and they become rigid. And instead of being in the moment and be present for this person. So that's why I did. And as you did mention, I get very systematic with, okay, so how do I make this happen? This abstract topic, how do I make it so that they have concrete ways of actually beginning to be okay with flirting, so that it becomes a place where they first start by creating rapport. And so I devised the formula where they begin with this idea of being a charismatic person first. And then if they feel that there's a good connection mentally and emotionally, then they can turn up the dial of their sensuality or their sexual energy and create this kind of romantic chemistry with the guy that she's with. But she doesn't have to start with that, which when I go into what is it being charismatic and what are the attributes of that, you'll see that it's kind of a natural flow of a conversation that you would have with anybody, but being more specific with men, let's say. But that's what I kind of devise, is this making it okay. So how do we do this? So some women are just not able to kind of be flirtatious and playful because they have this unconscious thing that's kind of stopping them from going there because of past experiences or the way they were brought up. Listen, I'm old school Italian. I was brought up old school Italian.
Yeah.
And so I get it, because for the longest time, everything was inappropriate. I couldn't do that. I wasn't brought up where you have to be open and have open conversations. And that was a no, and yet the ballroom business allowed me to be comfortable with touch and movement and dance. So it kind of opened up a whole reality for me. Now, people don't have time to take a ton of dance lessons to let this happen. So that's why I have a 2 parts to it. This part of how do we create rapport through charisma, and what is charisma exactly? And then how do we use our sensuality through our body language to enhance the experience and make it more romantic?
So this is really huge. So what I think is really important, there's sort of like 2 types of women that we work with. One is like the charisma rapport is sort of no problem, right? Like they're outgoing, they're comfortable talking to people. And then there are clients who are like, that's not me. I'm introverted. I'm really shy. I have, like you said, a lot of experiences in my past. So does this sort of work no matter what, your style is or your natural sort of way of being now?
Yes. And of course it does. And I say this because here's how I define charisma. Okay. It's really 2 parts.
Okay.
Part 1 is you leave someone with a positive impression of you. And then the second part is you leave someone with a positive impression about themselves. And that's what's really important, is that in your presence somehow, and then we're going to talk about how we do that, but in your presence, they feel good with being around you and better about themselves, that somehow when I'm with you, I actually kind of feel better about myself. And when you get that it has nothing to do about per se extrovert and introvert, not that is not involved. And I get it. When you're an introvert, sometimes it's you have a tendency of maybe when you're around too many people, it can be uncomfortable, or perhaps you're shy. But it's more than that. It's actually just about being curious about another human being and in your state, in your way of being. And then how do you manipulate this curiosity to your gain, if you will? So there's actually 4 specific virtues that people need to feel in your presence, and that creates a charismatic being, if you will.
So can we talk about those? Can we
Yes,
dive in?
yeah,
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I created the acronym ACES, ACES,
Okay,
to remind you of what they are. And those 4 sort of attributes or social virtues that people want to feel in your presence are appreciation, connection, elevation, and self-expression. So appreciation, we've all heard about this idea of really genuinely recognizing someone for who they are. And in their presence, you want to be able to recognize whether it's their character, their values, or something that they provided for you. That goes a long way when it comes with a man specifically, because they want to be good providers. So if they've done something for you, recognizing their effort and appreciating that makes them goes a long way. And sometimes it's not always easy when it comes to things like being online. How do you recognize or appreciate appreciate someone. And this is where you really need to be the kind of person that's observant and pay attention to what's there. And sometimes you just have a couple of pictures and a few words, but notice that. And whether it's something in the picture that stands out to you, his eyes, his smile, his shirt, it could be an activity that he's doing that stands out to you, notice about it. And then I'll go on to other parts of this ACEs that can lead into further discussion there with him. But ultimately, the first thing you want to do is be someone that appreciates them, their qualities, their efforts, their character, their values, their hobbies, anything that you notice about them, how they look, because, you know, compliments are like little gifts that, you know, that you deposit about, you know, in this person. So, you know, give the gift of compliments because it will come back to you. And this is where, by the way, this is all about giver's gain. So being a charismatic person is first thinking about that person. You know, don't think about what am I gaining, but what are they gaining? This
is a really huge point, Patty, because, you know, look, people will say to me, you know, I go on these dates and there's no chemistry and I don't have any connection. And I'm all like, well, what are you doing to create that, right? So when you show up and you're following this formula and you're looking at it, you know, with appreciation, it automatically, unconsciously causes you to put your arms down, right? To stop going like, well, are you worth my time?
Right.
And to focus on the human connection and find something to appreciate rather than focus on the story you have going on, what's wrong with him. So this is like, I think this first step is like in itself a freaking game changer. So super cool.
Good. And I would really make the habit, I always tell women, make the habit of giving 3 compliments a day at least. Let's say 3 compliments a day, and even to a complete stranger. You could be standing in line and you notice something about the person next to you at a coffee shop. Then just say, girl, guy, it doesn't matter. You want this way of being to become a habit, because then when you're under pressure in a situation where you're nervous about going on a date or you actually like the guy, then you can get a little weird about all of this, right? So you want it to be natural, like it's part of you. So make this a habit. This is about a way of being, not just on dates, but someone that can appreciate another human being for the value that they bring in your presence. So whether it's from the way they look to, again, their character, to what they provided for you, to how they make you feel, just be the kind of person that notices and pays attention. And then you validate them for that. Right?
I love that.
Cool. The second part of attribute of a charismatic person is connection. And that's someone that is able to relate with another human being through common interests, similar experiences. So this goes with being curious about who they are. So if you do ask, you know, if you notice that a guy kind of says something about, I like to bike, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
Then use the who, what, when, where, why, how to find out more about this. Be curious about it, because attached to that are his values. So that's why I like to ask open-ended questions. I'll say, so tell me a little bit more about that. Like, you know, what is it that you enjoy about riding your bike? How do you feel when you're on that bike? Because I like to ride my bike, but I get the feeling you do this at a whole other level. And off he goes. Right? Or is there a specific place that you like to ride? Like, I usually go here. Where do you like to do it? How often do you ride? Do you have specific people that you ride with? So you can go on and on about one topic. And what you're doing is trying to relate to him and then look at what's common. Because maybe you're going to find out that, you know, he has a group of friends that he always hangs out with because, I have my group of guys that I always ride my bike with. Or maybe he's an introvert like you and says, I like to do this on my own because it's a way that I really zen out. I said, you know what I like to do on my own? Hike, because it allows me to really just be by myself and be with nature. So then you're kind of both in your own way, have moments of introvertness, you know? So connection is tied into curiosity in the sense that you want to find out what are their interests and then look for similarities within who you are in these interests by asking open-ended questions.
This is, again, super huge because you're creating connection. So if one of your problems is I go on these dates and I'm not having a connection with someone, really, and I'm a big fan of taking self-responsibility, you can really then look at this strategy, right? Of like, great, I have some tools so I can create connection, by asking open-ended questions. And that guy who seems totally boring, right, on the surface, can then start talking about those things in his life that he's actually interested in because you're genuinely curious and you're asking those questions. So, Patty, how is this different? You know, because I know my ladies like research the shit out of all this stuff, and they hear, you know, like, don't interview a guy. You know, it like turns him off if he feels like he's on interview. Yeah. What's the difference between asking open-ended questions like this and creating connection versus like interviewing him to see if he's your fit?
Because, well, I'm looking to be curious and create rapport and relate to him. I'm not looking to see specifically, will he fit? It's too soon to tell, will he fit? Can I just engage with you? So my intent behind the questions is really because I want to find out who you are in your uniqueness and how we could actually relate. Because I do believe we all have something in common. And sometimes the commonness is in this gem and this sweet thing. So I'm not trying to figure out, you know, are you right for me? It will happen inevitably. You'll find out as the night progresses. I'm more about, who are you? Because I think I'm pretty cool, and I want to find out about your coolness, because I actually think a lot of people, I haven't met too many people that are not cool, because once you show up this way, you unlock something that's beautiful within every human being. And we all have walls, and what we want to do is create this energy that we can bring down our walls and just show up as imperfect and wonderful. So who are you? You know, so I have, it's my intent behind the questions. I'm not trying to figure out, is he a perfect fit for me? I'll find out at some point, if he will, but for now, I want to make sure that the night that I chose to go out with you, and I'm going to make this a fun night, not just for you, but for me. I don't just want to make this about who are you and do you fit with me? I'm like, I got myself dressed up. I want to go out and I want to have a fun night. And I know that in my presence, it's going to happen, because I'm very, I'm conscious about creating this kind of environment. And in the process, I want to get to know who you are. And if this just turns into a friendship or a one night thing and that's it, so what? I had a great time in the process. So I'm responsible to creating an environment that is fun for me. So when I ask a question, it's with that intent. Does that bring some clarity?
Yeah, totally. And what I want to say, what was going through my mind, because it's the dating den, I just wanted to say, you know, mindset, bitches, like literally, like you have to go through, because everybody's going into this, like that interview, like, you know, my time is very valuable and I don't want to waste my time. And so if you're wondering why you're not making a connection, like, who wants to sit across the table from that woman? Like, a man is going to be drawn to the experience of being with someone who's following this formula. This is just brilliant. Okay, so we've got appreciation, we got connection. What's the next one?
The next one is elevation, which is kind of tied into what I was suggesting right after, is you want to have the ability to uplift someone's mood. Again, giver's gain, right? This is not about let him be the one responsible to elevate my mood. I want to create the fun factor. I want to be the person, and he's either going to jump in and play, and if he doesn't, he doesn't. No skin off my back. I enjoyed my time with you, you know? And then, so I'm responsible, and I live this way because, especially at middle age, you know, you know, I don't just want to rely on my physicalness to be a beautiful person. I want to rely on my essence and who I am and my playfulness to be a beautiful person, and my vitality for life. So when I'm with someone, I really think about, how can I create a better mood, if you will. So I really want to be, I want to have energy, okay, and I want to be entertaining, and it doesn't mean I have to always be funny, but this is where I really use my sensory experience to stay in this playful spirit. So, you know, I thrive on the senses. So if I'm in a place and I'm enjoying the food or the drink or the song that's playing in the background or how the waiter took care of us or anything that's going on around that, I use that to juice me up and acknowledge it. So it goes a little bit with appreciation, but I know that I'm elevating the environment. I don't just detach from that. So I'm a mood seeker. So and then when and so I look for it, and then when I look for it, I acknowledge it. And then I jump in with it, because that's my role, to elevate the mood. If there's something fun going on, and it could be in the most subtle way, it could be in the way, the waitress smiled, and I'll compliment her, and then I'll get her engaged. Hey, can you help me figure out what I should have? And so I'm always in a situation where I want to elevate the experience, whether it's dinner by myself or dinner with a guy or dinner with friends. I like to to use my environment to heighten the sensory experience. So that's what elevation is.
So how would you do that how would you do that with food? Or how would you, because I'm sitting here thinking, did I do that when I was dating? I'm super good at talking to the waitress, but how do you do it with other parts of the environment, like the music or the food or something else?
I was on a date the other night with this guy, and how restaurants have always music in the background, and then there's this song that came on that was old school 70s. It just kind of happened that way, and I start moving my body and tapping to it, and I just stopped and I said, oh my God, I love this song. This is an era in my life, that's 70s, that there's something about that era that really resonates with who I am. And I start having a whole conversation about that because I heard a song. That's being in the moment, and that's being in the experience. And it feels like you might interrupt the flow, but it was a cool interruption. It wasn't me trying to interrupt what he was saying. I said, oh my God, hold on a second. I'm just feeling really good about this song right now. And so I go into this whole song thing, and it was fun. And we went into a whole other conversation about music.
I totally get it. I'm thinking I dated this guy one time. Well, actually a few months. His online name was Rockstar, and we were driving home from a date, and there was music on the radio, and it was, of course, it was Bon Jovi, right? It was the 80s. And I remember I was like, oh my God, I love this song. And we turned it up, and we both did Bon Jovi karaoke. And of all the dates that I ever went on, over the 5 years that I was single, this is probably one of the most fun times. And I also walked out of that date going, I could really like this guy. And it was because of what you just said, elevating the experience through something happening in an environment. That's like a ninja move, Patty.
Yeah. Yes. And food is the same thing, anything. It could be textures that are, just allow the senses to really enhance any experience that you're in. That's how you elevate a mood. Even if you're not someone that's funny, naturally funny, you have senses, use them to your advantage.
I love that. What about, I just thought of another one. Let's say he's wearing something and you brush up against his shirt or his jacket, or you're like, that fabric feels really nice or really soft, or, something that's taking some sort of sensory thing, even like you said, even if you're not considering yourself to be sensual, to notice it and to be curious about it and creative about it. And what the other thing is, I just want to point out here is what you said earlier is practice, right? So even if you're on a date or a second date and it's maybe not going as you had hoped, you can always practice this stuff to when the stakes are high and you're like, oh my God, he's so hot.
Yeah. Exactly, because that's when we get nervous and we get rigid, even more rigid, right? We don't go into. That's why habits are so important to formulate, because they kick in when you're under pressure, right? When you're nervous. So practice this with anybody, and the reason, and yes, I love this whole idea of something that he's wearing and you could touch it. And just as a side note, some women won't always do that. I use that when I want to turn up the dial a little bit, because I know that the second touch is involved, that there's an interest. It's sort of imprinting, hey, I'm into you.
Yeah.
And usually in my experience, when this is going on, most of the time men touch you first. Like it's sort of, in my experience, it happens 95% of the time. It's very rare that I have to start it because I'm creating this mood and they just need to they totally get drawn in to the experience and they love it, right? But if you're the kind, and it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to touch first. You can. Usually I use that. And if you're really into him, then you could go there. You want to maybe, like his watch or his jacket or whatever. So just as a side note, I want to say that because sometimes women would say, well, I don't know if I'm ready to touch him.
Oh,
That's
you're right.
You use the experience, the senses for just the environment of your own plate and the food that you're eating, the music that you're hearing. If it is with a waitress, it doesn't have to be anything specifically with him unless you're comfortable going there. So
okay. Awesome. That's great. So like when you're really into him, then
go for it.
That's the next level. Okay.
Touch that jacket.
Touch that jacket, ladies. Okay. That's so funny. I never thought of myself as a sensual person, this is helpful because when you're describing it this way, I'm like, but wait, maybe I am.
You are.
Because we're all sensory.
Yes.
Oh my God. Oh, lightning bolts. Okay. What's the last part of ACEs?
And the last one is called self-expression. And that's where it's your turn now to display your individuality. And what I mean by that, it could be from the clothes that you wear, but it also could be from experiences that you want to share within that. So, when I alluded at the beginning, I said, you want to ask some questions about his friends or whatever, if he bikes and cool, and who do you go with? And if that triggers a memory for you of an experience that you've had, that's when you go into, because you want to be a good storyteller is basically what I'm saying with this self-expression, is the experiences that you've had in your life, the fun ones, even some of the setbacks and what that's kind of taught you. In the conversation, you share that in a way that kind of allows him to be drawn into who you are as a human being and your essence and your life. So yes, you want to be about asking questions and being curious and open, but you also want to be able to, in this conversation, sometimes throw into stuff about you, because a lot of women have said, he doesn't ask me any questions. And I get that.
Yeah, I hear that
a lot. And often I know most men on dates, what they're trying to do is impress you. And so they tend to talk more than ask more. That's I just kind of chalk it up to that. This is their way of trying to look at me, look at who I am and what I have and what I do. So I kind of say, hey, cool. He's showing his peacock feathers and letting me know what a great guy is, so I'm good with that. So in the process of that exchange, I now become the person that artfully goes in and shares my self-expression of the kind of person that I am and what some of these things remind me of within my life story. And then I share it in a story.
I love this. Okay, now I have a client named Kim. You know who you are if you're listening. And she was always like, I don't know, like, I don't really think I'm that interesting, right? And so I was like asking her some questions to point her in the direction of how actually freaking interesting, cool, amazing she is. So someone's sitting there and listening and they're like, well, I don't know if I'm really interesting, or I've read that I'm not supposed to talk about A, B, and C because then I'll be too masculine or competitive. Talk to me about that.
That's so, I don't know how people keep that in mind, but it's really hard. Like, honestly, I get it. I mean, I do get it. So, I think, and that's something that's important. If we need to make ourselves interesting, because we want to be around interesting people, right? We always want to say, I want this guy that's interesting, that has this, vitality for life. But it's a way of being, right? And so who are you as a human being? So could it be, I don't know, like, look at your day and journal it. Take a look at what was an interesting experiences about your day. And sometimes it could just be, I'll go for, let's say in the morning, when I wake up, I kind of like to do a little meditation practice. And that's something that is important to me because it allows me to connect with and kind of have a calmness to my pressured life. So it's a habit that I've kind of created. So that's something that I do for me. And so sometimes in the context, I might share that because it's kind of helped me have a more Zen feel in life. So just look at your day, look at the evidence. That's the word I'm looking for.
The evidence. Okay.
The evidence. Your day is filled with evidence of the person that you are. So journal that evidence. It could be every time. It could be when I go to the coffee shop. Do you go to a regular coffee shop? Do you have experiences with certain people? What happens in that moment when you talk to someone? And it could be at work. What do you do at work? What is the evidence that shows about the interesting person that you are? And the interesting person can be anything. It just could be you're the kind of person that everybody goes to because you're a good listener. And when you're listening, what does that bring up in you? I'm not quite sure, just look for evidence. I've become an evidence seeker because it reminds me of who I am. So every time, and this is what I really need to grab at, especially when I'm feeling not so good about myself, then I've gotten into the practice of looking for things that I do like about myself. So it could be in a physical sense, it could be in the kind of values that I have. It could be, usually it's value related, but any of that, character traits. You have to be the kind of person. So you might want to develop the habit of, when I was doing a gratitude journal, it's a small little journal. I had 2 pages. I had one page where I got into the habit of writing down 3 things that I was grateful for in others. And then I got into the habit of 3 things that I'm grateful for, that I'm proud of about myself.
Yeah.
I learned to become the kind of person that can acknowledge, who I am and how that I'm actually a cool person. So that again is a habit. So maybe developing that kind of habit so that you become the kind of person that realizes what you have to give.
I love that. We tell our clients, we call it a brag book, like create your own little brag book about, 3 things a day that are evidence, how freaking awesome you are. And the question that I ended up asking Kim, which is about evidence, is I said, what is something like if someone knew this about you, they would be like so surprised. Like it,
very cool.
Right. And so on one hand, she's like, her career is something very cerebral, but her favorite thing to do is to literally go to the park with her, a little boy that, her best friend's son. And she literally loves to go play on the park equipment. Right? She's like, just give me a swing. So I want a teeter-totter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's super playful. And she was like, nobody would think that about me because, what I do for my profession is super cerebral. And then I was like, that's cool. That's interesting, right? So ask yourself, what is super surprising? Nobody would ever guess that you blah, blah, blah. So it's all about, this is a theme. Mindset, bitches. Okay. Okay, so we went through ACEs. We're definitely going to have another interview with you because we could talk to you for hours. Tell me, so you've got ACEs. What else do we need to know about the flirting formula to actually implement this and start to make a change so that we feel comfortable flirting with men and overcome that, if I do this, is he going to get the wrong idea?
So again, this goes into the part of really making this a practice about, I see it as a way of creating a rapport with human beings. How do I make and that I really own my experience in life, right? So become the kind of person that owns her experience. And then once you're there and you make this habit of always creating rapport and what are the ACEs and you kind of be this kind of person, then it becomes about the other part, which is, turning up the sexual energy where that there's a resonance of that within flirting where you do feel interested in taking this to another level with this guy because you don't just want to connect with him on a fun level, but on another, and playfulness is fun and flirty too, but at least you're connecting. I'm giving you the pathway to make it okay to connect with another human being and not about, I want to flirt per se with this guy and make sure that he's interested in me or that I'm interested in him. And I got to make sure that, we have this connection. This is just about a way of being. So start with charisma and then it will then you turn up the other dial because you do touch him, or because you do arch your back a little bit, or because you do, lean in a little bit more, lean back and be more receptive and use your inner thighs. And you do all this other stuff that I talk about non-verbally to make you feel more feminine and sensual, because now you're interested in taking it to another level. So allow yourself the charismatic experience to happen, so that then you can easily, and it kind of flows naturally to go into this more sensual experience or feminine energy and raising the romantic chemistry.
I love it. Okay, so we're definitely having you back on to talk about the sensual, sexual part. But if you could leave us with one tantalizing tip that is a transitional move, so to speak, like you had mentioned something about your thighs or arching back. What's one little skill that you can leave with our ladies if they are wanting to make that transition from charisma and rapport to wow, wow, woo?
Wow. My favorite is, I always say, is self-touch. And I say this only for multiple reasons, but one of them is that it allows me, as soon as I, caress my neck, or I play a little bit with my hair, or touch my shoulder or my thigh or my wrist, and I caress it, really, it has multiple meanings for me. It gets me grounded and into my body, and it allows me to soften. The moment I do that, I'm reminded to be in my body and to say soft, and to kind of melt more, and it reminds me of self-love. And therefore, usually when all this starts to happen, the man tends to notice that there's something going on with you. What is that? What, you've softened up, you begin. So the idea of self-touch is this idea of allowing yourself to melt the ice around you, to allow your sensual nature, your feminine, to kind of slowly peer out by giving yourself self-love and letting him know non-verbally that you're comfortable with your body, that you love every ounce and inch of you. And maybe allow the imagination from there to go further. But that's the one I sort of is my favorite.
I freaking love that. And that is something that you can do pretty easily. And if it feels uncomfortable at first, then guess what? Practice, right? Because it's almost like, oh, that feels so awkward. Like it seems so, what's the right word? Robotic or unnatural or manipulative. But practice it. And I think you can do that anywhere, right? Like, again, you want to do it where there's the low stakes sort of situation, right?
Yeah. Again, all of this is not just to be done when there's the guy in front of you. It's to do all the time. Even if you're by yourself, if that's where it starts first, then so be it. Take a time out at your desk and say, okay, it's self-touch time. Let me get back into my body and stay into my feminine spirit. I call these transition tools for women, because when you're in your masculine all day, you want to develop the habit of transitioning into your feminine more quickly and easily. So self-touch is a way to do that, so that you don't allow the body, your physicality, to stay in a rigid state.
I love it. I'm all about somatics. That's awesome. I just had like a whole sitcom moment where there's like some woman in a cubicle practicing her Patti Contenta moves, and suddenly there's like, every guy in the office is like, have you noticed Jane? I mean, damn.
Exactly.
I love that. All right, ladies, you definitely want to get a hold of more sensuality secrets, and there's a free video series, and a link to that is in the show notes, and it'll tell you how to shift your energy to really start connecting to your feminine essence and to be approachable to men. So grab that. It's in the show notes. Patty, I'm definitely having you back so we can talk about sexy time. And you're just amazing. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Marni. It's always a pleasure talking with you. I love your energy, and I love your kick-ass attitude with all of this. I think you're an amazing woman. Thank you.
All right. I love you, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, ladies.